Sorry about the audio in this video. Liam messed it up. Starting to think I need to move to the States to manage his use.
Hey guys, it's Ashen from Ashen Warrior Props. Today I'm going to be showing you how to build the Broken Straight Sword and Broken Straight Sword hilt from Dark Souls. Now, before we get into it, it's been a hot minute. For those of you who aren't on my other social medias like Instagram and Facebook, had a lot of crazy stuff going on. I had a boatload of commissions. On top of that, we had to move really quickly. But I'm back. I'm alive, and I've been making stuff for a while. I just now finally had time to sit down and record. I have a bunch of other cool videos I'm recording as well. We also got a new puppy, so if you hear a oof, that's everybody. Yep, this is our new baby. His name is Arthur. Mwah. Go do stuff. But for now, I want to kick off a build series. I'm going to call it the Guided Tour of Lordran. It wouldn't be right, it wouldn't be proper, unless we started out making literally the first weapon you touch in Dark Souls. Because let's be real, it is impossible, unless you're in New Game Plus, that you didn't start without this little glorious piece of mwah. I missed it. But anywho, so without further ado, let's get into the build. You'll notice that I have two gone up and drawn up in the template, which you can find on my website, link in bio, or description. Ooh, I'm not ready to come back to YouTube. If you go ahead and download the template, you'll notice I've included the templates for not only the Broken Straight Sword hilt, which is the one you start out with when you leave the Undead Asylum. Well, when you first start out, when the Oscar drops the keys and it's all like, surprise, bitch! But the template has the template blade for the Broken Straight Sword. The nomenclature's different by literally one word. Broken Straight Sword hilt is the one with absolutely no blade. The Broken Straight Sword is the one with more of a blade. There he goes. So to start, we're going to go from ass up to the blade. Actually, yeah, Lord have mercy, I should have scripted this. Anywho, so let's count how many times I say anywho. Ryan, can you start a counter right there? Because I'm going to say it a lot. For this, you can use mostly scraps. I didn't cut a fresh piece of foam for this entire build, did I? And we're going to be doing a stacking technique in this. So for starters, the pommel. The pommel is 24 millimeters total. So what I did was I took a piece of 10 millimeter HD foam, a piece of 4 millimeter HD foam, and then another piece of 10, and I just sandwiched them. So like if this is the 4 millimeter foam and my hands are 10, it's like that. Or 3 6s, 4 6s. Math. Just math. Math it up until you get 24. We're going to follow the same principle for the grip. It is 24 millimeters thickness, so you get 2 10s and a 4, however many 6s, a bunch of 2s if you're crazy. And then you have the Crossguard, and the Crossguard is 30 millimeters thick. For it, I just stacked 3 pieces of 10 on top of each other. And you'll notice in the clips I've got right now, I'm not cutting them out yet. I'm stacking my pieces and then tracing out the template, which I found to be the easiest method, especially I stack everything first and then I draw it out. And the reason I do that is because I don't want any seams whatsoever when I do this. Drawing a blank. Once you've got everything traced from pommel to crossguard, lay those pieces aside, and then we're going to move on to the blade. Now the blade is 2 6s, so it's 12 millimeters total. You can do 4 if you're brave enough and trust your sanding skill. Either way, I sanded mine to be really thin. In total, I have calipers here. I'm going to tell you how thick it is after it's been sanded. We don't want standard. We want maple syrups per hour. 8 millimeters thick, which is good. That's only a few millimeters thicker than a legitimate diamond shaped like real world sword. So anywho, so for the blade, I took 2 pieces of. Are you laughing at anywho or the dogs? Anywho. So anywho, shit. You'll see me looking around right now, Ryan. You don't have to leave this clip in. I'm looking for the thing that I was looking for. I laid my pieces of 6 out. I laid them in the general length and shape of each blade. And then I cored them with this little piece. It's a 3 millimeter thick steel rod. You can get them at your local hardware store. And I centered that on my piece of foam, and then laid my sandwich piece of foam, 6 millimeter HD foam on top of it, and then traced out the blade pattern. Anywho, so, damn it. So Once you've got your blade pattern traced out on here, then you're good to start cutting. When I traced the blade on here, I cut straight. I didn't cut out the nicks and stuff. We're going to do that after it's been assembled. I'm also General Grievous. Now, in some of these clips, I'm cutting with a knife, and then others I'm going to be using a bandsaw. Either is fine. I recently just got a bandsaw and I wanted to play with it, so I used the bandsaw. This one was done with a bandsaw, this one was done with a knife. There's literally no difference other than like damage and stuff. So once you've got everything cut out, I lightly assembled everything just to make sure it was going to be how I wanted it to. Then we're going to go on to sanding. This whole project is going to be a hell of a lot easier if you have a belt sander. If you don't, a Dremel works fine, or if you're incredibly patient, you can hand sand it. Yeah, it's just going to take forever. I've done it for the two that are back there are hand sanded, and they still turned out wonderful. I love them to pieces. It just sucked. So for sanding, don't touch the pommel right now. The pommel we're going to go and shape later with our Dremel tool. We're going to move straight into the hilt / grip, and to do that I took it and I gripped it by the side with my middle and index finger and my thumb on the back and rocked it back and forth in a crescent motion. Just rock it back and forth, switch sides, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It doesn't have to be perfectly round if you've ever held a real world sword. They're not perfectly cylindrical. And once you've done that, now we're going to get into sanding things that have a more diamond shape. If you look at the Crossguard here, it's in a diamond similar to the blade. And the way I did that was I took some blue painter's tape and taped off the halfway mark on the Crossguard and then sanded at a whatever angle that is. It does help if you turn to your flat side and mark off the exact angle or diamond shape you have on here. It's going to make it a lot easier when you're sanding, so you know where you're at and making sure both sides are even. And once you've sanded that to the diamond shape that you want, you just tape the other side and repeat. You can refine it later with a Dremel. I did that. I always round off my, not 100% round off, but just kind of like soften the edges on everything. And then the blade. The blade was the most time-consuming part. I absolutely hate diamond-shaped blades. For the blade, we're going to apply the similar principle. We're going to tape off one side, and we're just going to slowly work our way back and forth on the belt sander. If your belt sander stands up long ways, I've found it easier in the past. If it's long ways, to hold it with both hands and come in like this. But again, it's up to you. If you've got similar experience with a belt sander, wonderful. If not, it's a great way to practice. And again, I can go further in depth about how to use a belt sander and how to work with sanding tools in another video. I'm just showing you how to build this today. Now, if you're doing the long blade, what I found is it is a lot harder to get that diamond shape on the belt sander. It took me a lot longer to do this one. I had to take a break and let my wife do some of the work. But you're going to follow the similar technique. You're going to, like you're sharpen the shave. For the pommel, I refined it using a Dremel tool. Cutting the pommel out with a knife was hard, but it's not impossible. What I did was I laid the template down and just kind of sawed my way. So I did an up and down motion with my right hand and rotated the piece of foam with my left and then cut the 2 notches there. Once you've done that, the center is going to be done with your Dremel tool. And for the pommel, we're not going for ultra. It doesn't have to be a cylindrical tube that goes all the way around. If it were that, I would have done the foam dowels. For this, you're literally just going to be rounding the sides, and I rounded these. So again, this is a 10, a 4, and a 10. I rounded the 10s until they met the edge of the 4 piece, and if you've sanded them properly, you're not going to be able to really tell. It's just mark it off and round them off until they're about kind of like this. You'll notice with your blade, you'll have a steel rod hanging off the end of it. I took a little spiked kebab stick, this. And I took it and I ran it through the center of the Crossguard, slid the Crossguard on, ran it through the handle, slid the handle on, and then dabbled the end of the pommel, slid the pommel on. And once that's on and you like the shape, and you made a commitment that you don't want to do any more work on the general build, go ahead and slightly separate everything and apply barge contact cement is what I've been using this entire time. Do your contact cement in between the crossguard and the blade, and then the crossguard and the handle and the pommel. Let it sit for about 3 or 4 minutes, and then slide everything together. And once you've done that, you've got this stuff. But you're looking at these and you're like, Ashen, you stupid moron. The things are rusted and broken. I've seen them. You start out with them in the Undead Asylum. I've slapped the glorious cheeks of the Asylum Demon with this thing and done no damage. You're right, Jimothy. And let me tell you, you gotta damage this stuff and make it look dirty. Now to the damage and texturing. What I did next was, with my completed builds, I took the short one first, and I took the template that I've provided, laid it over top of the foam ones, and drawn out the damage. And the damage may look spastic to you if you're not overly familiar with the game, but the damage that I provided on the template is actually screen accurate. All the nicks are screen accurate to the ones seen in Dark Souls. So I marked out the nicks and cuts on the blade from the template, and then cut them out just with my utility knife. And that is your general screen accurate damage. Now we're going to get into the cuts and texture of the blade. Now you'll notice on mine here in this clip, they've got slashes and stuff on top of it. That's what they have in the game. In the game, if you look closely, you can see where another sword has bashed it or clashed up against it, or where the undead in the Undead Asylum have been like slapping the shit out of a wall. I like to mark out my damage with a pen first, so I can get a kind of head feel for what it's going to look like when I cut it. And once I've marked out my blade damage, or like my cut damage that other blades would have caused, or walls or whatever, I go in with I did a metal cutoff wheel on my Dremel tool. You don't have to, it's just kind of the only one I had laying in my Dremel box. I need to go get another tool for it. So use a cutoff wheel, a sanding wheel, a plastic wheel, whatever, to achieve the slash damage on this. And once you're happy with the slash damage you've done, remember, don't cluster it together. It shouldn't look like your damage on your armor and weapons shouldn't have just been done with your knife. It shouldn't look like you went buck wild on the whole operation. Anywho, so next up, once you're happy with your blade damage, your nicks and cuts, we're going to move into texturing. And you'll notice here I've done a lot of pit and rust damage. And typically I like to do my pitting in my priming and sealing phase, but for something of this caliber, where its entire premise is broken, rusted, and damn near unusable, pre-damaging and pre-pitting, pre-rusting, and getting a natural texture, or an overall worn texture on the build is what we want to do. The mechanical stone bit is what I used for this. Holy Christmas, you're right. So it's the conical stone bit. And the reason I did it is because the way it works with the foam, it burnishes it just a little bit, which gives it that nice, uneven feel to it that's going to give it the look of burn, wear, water damage, rust. Pick out certain spots. It shouldn't be all together. If you've ever looked at a piece of rust, unless it's been rusting for 20, 30 years and it's not something that someone's tried to preserve, think of like a rust hole on an old vehicle. If you look at a rusted out floorboard, that's all to pieces. But on something that someone's trying to preserve. So what I like to do is take the tip of the stone bit and stab it and just kind of hammer it on a little bit. And then from time to time, once you've kind of created your general area, is then go in a rough pattern all around it. It's going to take some time. If you watch the clip and just look closely, you'll see how I do it. It's a lot of tapping, and then rubbing it together, tapping, running together. And this is going to essentially do your pre-pitting damage. So it should look something like this when you're done. Remember it shouldn't be all over the place. It should be in places where there's big gashes. It should be in corners. Once you're happy with your pitting and damage, again, I'm going to give you 4 examples here. But it should look kind of something like these. Zoom in if you want. It may not look hyper real now, but it will when we paint it. But this is a realistic version of your rust and damage, so make it roughly like that if that's what you're going for. Next, we're going to heat seal this. Typically with HD foam, you don't need to heat seal. I've done whole builds where I don't do it, and then I've done some where I do. For this one, it's one of the ones I like to do. If you're going to have anything with HD foam that's elongated that you don't want to wobble, I like to heat seal it. It gives it some more rigidity. Again, totally not necessary because the stuff is strong as I'll get out. But we're going to heat seal everything. And you'll notice, like right here when I'm talking, I've got a wrap on mine. Don't your pants yet. For the wrap, I did the old tried and true leather texture for foam, where I balled up some tin foil, pulled it back apart, and laid on it with an iron. You can also preheat it with a heat gun and then press the tin foil down on it. Completely up to you, whatever method you want to use. We're gonna cut some strips. The strips I used were about a 1/2 inch. You can go thicker, wider, whatever. And the way we're gonna apply the strip is once you've got it textured and cut, is we're going to tack down at the bottom. We're gonna tack it at the bottom and slowly rotate upwards in a diagonal direction. I guess, yeah, if I'm going, yeah, that's diagonal. And you're gonna overlap the previous piece. It's okay if you get messy. I went purposely messy on this because, again, I wanted it to look like something someone had tried to preserve, or an undead who's going hollow in the undead asylum would try to rewrap or whatever. So make them uneven, make them messy. That's what it's supposed to be. Remember, this is a piece of crap. No, the build is not. The build is great. With that said and done, you guys are done with the overall build. And if you did both, you should have 2, or if you're me who has to prototype before he builds a video, you'll have 4. So yeah, with that, your main build of your broken straight sword and broken straight sword hilt are done. This is the starter weapons you have picked out from the game. It's what you start out with. First thing you get to touch, it's glorious. And then you go pick up your class weapon. So yeah, leave a comment for what class you normally start out in Dark Souls 1. I'm just interested. Maybe I'll base the next video on whatever class I see the most comments for, or message me. With all that said and done, I think we are about done here. So yeah, hold on, I gotta do outro. Thanks so much for watching. I'm super glad y'all came and joined. Pardon if it seemed frantic this time around. I'm just kind of getting back into making videos again, but I'm super glad I made the time to come do this. I'm trying to make more time to make more videos. I'm actually, by the time you're viewing this, I'm recording a build series for a whole suit. I appreciate all the love and support over on the social media. I don't know if it's in frame, but you see a bunch of bins of the Estus flasks and stuff over there. Some of the stuff that I'm selling over on my Etsy, so if you would like an Estus flask soapstone or sunlight metal, they are 100% screen accurate, movie quality, yada yada yada. If you want to keep in touch with me or see what I'm doing daily, I post mostly on Instagram. I answer messages mostly on Instagram, so if you want to get in contact with me, head on over there, check everything out. I have a Patreon, which I'm going to start sending videos to, get 24-hour early access to the videos that I'm going to be releasing. I also have a website where you can drop a donation if you want to support the channel that way. Free templates are also on the website with other previous build videos. Good. But yeah,